news about a new Christian school in our area, and our monthly segment of A Pastor's Side Hustle. All that and more coming up now on Joy in the City True Stories. Joy in the City is a program highlighting people and organizations having an impact in our city. All too often, we hear about the problems and dysfunction in our culture, but we are coming with a different approach as we take a look at the good things going on right here in our community. I'm Bethany Marshall, and you are about to see what God is doing in our city. Community Worship Center in Tyrone is embarking on a new educational endeavor by starting a Christian school called Tyrone Christian Academy. Keith Deal, pastor of CWC, sat down and shared his heart about what they are doing.
So Keith, even though the school is just beginning, it's in its beginning stages right now, this idea actually stems from several years ago. So tell me a little bit about that story.
Yeah, I'd love to. So in 2013, we received a prophetic word that God would birth a school from CWC, and which I think is amazing because that tells us that God's still speaking to his people. He's still moving amongst his people. He has a plan that he desires to fulfill here on the earth, and he includes us to do that. And what's wild about that prophecy is there's several prophecies within that, like the carnival. This was before the carnival was birthed, which Teresa, about the carnival, Tyrone Carnival. It came to pass, while several other prophetic words from that day has come to pass. And so at the time, it seemed absolutely, obviously impossible. Our church was 25 people, but we really trusted God and believed and kept praying into that, and just kept going back to the word that God's going to fulfill what he spoke.
So somebody specifically spoke that over your church, that
Correct.
A school was going to be birthed.
Yes.
And how did you feel about that? Did you wonder throughout the years when that was ever going to come?
Oh, absolutely. There's been several instances where we're like, okay, Lord, we'd return to that word for encouragement. God's going to, bring this to pass. But yeah, at the time, it really didn't seem like it would ever happen, because that's a pretty big undertaking for such a small body at the time. And God's been so faithful over the years to grow the body and, add to that vision and finally bring the vision to pass. And we're in the beginning stages of that.
So why now?
So we really felt back in, 2020 that the Lord, I was in prayer one morning and I felt like the Lord said, return to the word. And so I went back, looked up the prophecy, actually called my mother-in-law who types it all out and said, hey, can you find that prophecy for us? And so went back to that and was reading it and just encouraging myself, and really felt like the Lord said, it's time. Now's time. And, felt like he said, I want you to raise warriors. Actually, I felt like it was train warriors, and we changed it to raising warriors, because we're raising children. And so, because Paul is clear in Ephesians, right? He says that our battle's not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, authorities, and principalities in this dark age, right? And so I was like, okay, Lord, well then let's raise these kids up. Let's train them in the ways of the Lord so that they may never depart when they get older. So that's how it all came to pass.
So where are we at currently with the process?
Yeah, so currently in the process, we've got a couple leads on buildings to be able to host that, because at our church is just not quite large enough or set up in a way that it would be as beneficial as a couple of these other buildings, and that we're working with a couple churches in Tyrone to make that happen, and we're looking forward to that. We got a couple meetings here in the next couple of days to solidify the building process. And we've got several, we had over 280 emails about kids who are interested in coming to the school, very interested in it, and then multiple teacher applications that's come in as well. And so we're getting ready to take off.
So it's exciting.
Really exciting.
Yes.
Yeah, we're really excited.
Now, Brandon, you have a big role in this process. So tell us what that role is and just a little bit about your background that qualifies you for what you're about to undertake.
Right. So I'm coming on as headmaster, which essentially, gives me that lead role over all the students, over all the teachers. Right now, what I'm performing is really a lot of the groundwork to get this school up and running, looking for locations, getting the policies, procedures in place. We've put together a good committee, a steering committee to help plan the school, a curriculum committee. A lot of really good biblical-based curriculum has already been selected and previewed and ready to go. And now at this stage, I'm really looking to find teachers, to bring those correct teachers in to make sure that we're holding true to the vision for this school that was initially prophesied and what we've put in place. So from some background of myself, not a traditional education background. The past 12 years I spent in a leadership position for a telecommunications company. May sound odd, but I've spent a lot of time really developing people, leading people that's what I excel at. So from a personal standpoint, I would consider myself a generalist. I enjoy learning about everything, right? And I want to be able to share that passion. There's so many different talents and skills that really have kind of fallen by the wayside that a lot of kids just don't get the opportunity to be exposed to. And being that I'm so passionate about learning almost anything out there, I want to be able to, bring that back into our education system so that the model we're looking to develop, it's going to be something different than what you'd see. A lot of it, we're going to really excel academically, but we want to put a lot of focus on life skills training as well.
Who exactly is the school targeting? Who is it for?
So the school is for any student at all. I mean, we want to be open to our entire community. We don't want it to be, just a CWC school. It is for our entire region, our entire community. I mean, that's a message we've put out there. We want every child to have an opportunity to come. We're looking for different ways to offer grants and scholarships for even those families who may not be able to traditionally afford a private education, because we don't want anything to get in the way of a child coming and getting a good Christian biblical education.
Are you working with any of the other Christian schools in the area? Are you getting any support from other Christian schools? We're all kingdom minded, so I would hope that they would want to have your back and lead you in the right directions. And
absolutely, yes. I've reached out to quite a few different Christian schools in the area and even outside of our area, just to make sure we're doing everything like we need to, and also to get that support and that advice from local Christian schools. So there are a few that have really been integral in giving us a lot of good tips and information. Yes.
Yeah, it's actually been pretty neat to see, how helpful these other Christian schools have been to offer, any resource
right.
possible that we could, help us with this process, because it's new to us, obviously, and they've been great.
that makes me really happy.
Yeah, it's not viewed as a competition.
No.
Exactly.
We all have the same mind, the same goal. We just want a Christian education for students everywhere.
So what are some of the needs that you still have out there in order to start up when the next school year starts?
So we still need to get some more teachers in. We have a lot of really good applicants, which we're going to be starting that interview process here soon. Obviously, the more people apply, the better chance we have to find those perfect people that God really sees, partnering with us in this vision. There's always financial need. We don't have the financial support that a public school system does. It's all privately funded based on, donations and tuition. So that's a big need as well. And like Keith had mentioned earlier, we're still working on finalizing the location, but we really see that coming to fruition here within the next week or so.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now, you guys, speaking of finances, are having a big fundraiser coming up, kind of got dropped in your lap.
Yes.
So tell me about that, Keith.
Yeah, so we have the opportunity to do a rodeo, which is a new venture for especially myself. I'm not from the rodeo side of things of life, but yeah, it's been really interesting to see it come into, us getting it, drawn up and figuring out all the different details that go into that. But it's been great. Yeah, it's June 17th and 18th, and it's held at the Huntington County Fairgrounds. And that's Father's Day weekend. I think the doors open at 4:30. Is that when the gates open? I know the rodeo starts at 7:30. Yeah. It opens at 4:30. It's going to be fun for the whole family. We got a kids corral. We got a bunch of different attractions. All the food trucks, that you could imagine there. So it'll be great fair food. Just a good time for your entire family. And so it's $15 for adults to get in if you pre-order. $15 online. You can go to to Warriors Rodeo, right? Warriors Rodeo to get tickets to that. And if you go on, pre-order them, they're $15 for adults, $10 for students. At the gate, it'll be $20 for adults and $12 for students. And so, yeah, we'd love for people to come out to that. That'd be a great way to raise funds, because we are trying to start that, like Brandon said. We're trying to start the scholarship fund so that any kid that comes, they can, receive the education that they desire to do through us. And so we really want to and be able to minister to our community in the surrounding area with the Christian education.
And when we come back, we're going to tell about the amazing story of how Brandon became part of this team.
If you know a person or organization impacting our city, we want to hear about it. You can contact us at 814-944-1948 or by email at stories@joyinthecity.org.
Kick off summer by joining faith-filled believers from all across the city for Saturate Altoona. This is a free summer worship series unifying believers throughout our community. You're invited to join worshipers every Sunday night during the month of June at Heritage Plaza, beginning at 6:30 p.m. You'll hear from 12 different faith leaders of several denominations and musicians from many churches. You don't want to miss Saturate Altoona every Sunday night in June at Heritage Plaza in downtown Altoona.
This segment is brought to you by Harry's Construction, whose motto is, "If you can dream it, we can create it." They are the kitchen and bath design experts, so call Harry's Construction for all your remodeling needs.
So Brandon, there's an interesting story about how you became the headmaster of the school. It's a story, only God can do this. So I want you and Keith to explain that to us.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how the Lord can bring people together and how he can really stir a calling in you. I'll let Keith kind of start it off, because I think he knew before I did that I would be in this role. So I'll let him kind of start.
Yeah, so when the Lord really called us to launch the school, we knew God was saying go, We started praying about what kind of committee to put together, who was going to be a part of it, Lord. And this process has just been us constantly praying and fasting, and the Lord being faithful to answer us. And first of all, we put together an intercessory prayer team. Like, guys, we need you praying, stand in the gap for us, that we would, have the spirit of wisdom upon us and the word of knowledge. We need those things, the gifts of the Spirit, to be able to bring this to pass. And so, anyway, my wife gets a word that Brandon and his wife was supposed to be on this, what we called the R&D committee, research and development. And as we called them and said, hey, Brandon and Megan, and we didn't know them real well. They go to our church, been to our church, many years, and we see the faithfulness of their life, but didn't really know what Brandon did at all. Megan obviously is a teacher at the school, and so we knew her a little better than even Brandon. And so anyway, we asked them to be a part of that R&D committee. And as we're sitting in his kitchen, at his kitchen table, talking about this in our heart to them, sharing with them, the Lord just whispered in my heart, that small still voice. He said, he will run your school. And I said, Lord, that don't make any sense. I don't think he's a teacher. I don't think he's an educator. I was like, Lord, that doesn't make any sense. And, that's where it started. And so as this process, they joined the R&D committee, him and his wife both. And, we're part of the inside talks and, the development end of it. And as we're praying, I told my wife, I'm like, the Lord spoke to me that Brandon was going to run the school. And she goes, really? I said, yeah. And she goes, okay. Well, we kept praying. And my wife said, well, you need to go talk to him about that. And as I was talking to the Lord, because I really felt like Gideon, to be honest with you, I was like, Lord, you need to show me, wet the fleece. Now wet everything around the fleece. If this is who you want to lead the school, it's a big decision. And the Lord spoke to me very clearly. He said, he will come to you, and that's how you'll know he's to run the school, which sounded crazy at the time because he had a great job, very successful. And so 2 weeks prior, now fast forward several weeks later, 2 weeks prior to the launch of the school at the church, and the announcement, we really wanted to have the headmaster, the person running the school, in place so that when we told the church this is what we're doing, it would, obviously add a lot more credibility than just a talk. We got actually somebody in place on staff. And 2 weeks prior, we didn't, Brandon hadn't come to me yet. And I was like, oh my goodness. And my wife said to me, she said, well, now you need to go talk to him. I said, I'm not doing that. I felt like the Lord said he would come to me. That's how I would know. Well, 2 weeks prior to launching the school, announcing it, Brandon comes into my office on a Sunday morning after church, and he says to me, hey, Pastor, I don't really know how to say this except to just say it. I feel like the Lord's wanting me to run the school. And yeah, and I don't know what was going on in the back end of things.
So now tell me your end of things, of how you came to that.
How that looked, right?
Yes.
So whenever Keith and Julie, they initially approached me and my wife about being on this R&D committee, I thought it was about Meg. She's a teacher, has been a teacher for quite a long time. So I'm like, oh, they just want your expertise. I'm just here, to be your moral support in the process. So I at that moment, I didn't have a feeling that, oh, this is something I'm really supposed to have a heavy hand in. But as we really started getting into it, I knew, I'm supposed to be here. I'm definitely supposed to be helping with this. At that moment, I didn't know in what capacity. So really just started pouring myself into it, spending a lot of time praying on it, just getting in the Word, trying to really hear from God. Yeah. Fast forward a couple months, and I got a feeling that, I'm supposed to be doing this in a permanent role. And like he said, I did have a very successful career. I knew that I was at the end of that career, though. I'd known that for a couple years, but I just didn't know where God wanted me to be, so I was sticking it out. I had always had the feeling that I wasn't supposed to leave that job until he presented something to me. So I was not actively job searching by any means. I got that feeling, I'm supposed to be part of this school. So I started praying, in what capacity? This isn't my expertise. This isn't what I'm comfortable with even. And in one of my prayer sessions, I really, I just asked God, I was like, if I'm supposed to do this, I need you to tell me what I'm supposed to do exactly. And he made that very clear. In almost an audible voice, you are to be leading that school. I'm like, what? That doesn't even make sense to me. I'm used to leading adults, not small children. I have kids. But he made that very, very clear. And I felt almost awkward when I walked into Keith's office. I'm like, you're going to walk in here and tell him you're running a school, and he's probably just going to look at you like you're crazy, right? But that's not, he already knew. It just took me a little bit longer to really, get that final word from God. And he did. He spoke clearly.
It's a big venture to take the school, the radio too, but but I know you, Keith, you're a detail guy, so I have no doubt that this is gonna be good.
Yeah, and we've really believed that God's called us to it. And the entire way through this whole process, the Lord's given us dreams and visions and really walked us through this process, even with Brandon, bringing Brandon along. God has been faithful to fulfill his word. He who began a work will see it to completion, right? He'll fulfill it. And so we've been really relying on the Lord in prayer and fasting and believing, this is what God desires. And so he's going to bring it to pass. And we're just going to be faithful with what he's asked us to do and continue to reach out to our community and share the gospel and the love of Christ to everyone that we possibly can. And this is just another avenue to be able to do that in the education world. And so we really look forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, good luck, guys, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks.
Mouth-watering family recipes, easy to make meals, humor and faith fill the inspiring new show Dano on the Counter. Born with only half a spine, Dano Burkhardt was never supposed to be able to hold his head up. Despite countless surgeries, a stroke, leg amputations, and kidney transplants, Dano developed a contagious love for life. Join Dano on Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. on Fox 8 as he shares his easy-to-make dishes and the hope that keeps him pushing forward.
James Baldwin, pastor of Champion Life Church in Altoona, shared with us about his side hustle as an owner of a professional cleaning company.
Well, thank you, Pastor James, for joining with me today. We've been doing a series talking to different pastors on ministry combined with a side hustle or another type of job to supplement income and so forth. So talk to us a little bit about your ministry before we get into that aspect. Talk to us a little bit about the ministry that you have.
Well, my wife and I started a church a number of years ago, and we wanted to really reach people that were disenfranchised from church, who didn't maybe had given up on church. So we started, and that's how we started with, a few people sitting around a table, and so the church to this day is very missional in its focus and reaching people and leading them to Christ, but then discipling them as well.
Sure. Now, years ago, you used to oversee a youth ministry that was a big thing, community-wide throughout our city. What made the shift from that to pastoring like you are now?
Well, God really put us into a transition. So we had, which was almost 25 years ago, we had over 2,000 kids in our youth ministry. It was very, very growing, very, very big. And then God just told us it was going to be a transition. And during that transition, we literally went to no kids. Like everything shifted almost overnight. And over a course of 6 months, God was working on us and kind of showing us that He wanted us to go in a different direction. And so at that point in time, we did not even think that it would be planting a church. It wasn't even in our idea box. And in 6 months later, and God kind of shoved us in that direction. That's the best way to put it.
Okay, so you've been pastoring as the lead pastor, Champion Life, for how long now?
That would be going on 15 years.
Wow.
This year will be 15 years.
Wow, hasn't been that long.
Yeah.
So, as part of this series, we're talking to pastors who are full-time capacity pastor, but yet have a side hustle. Talk to us a little bit about what you do and maybe how that got started.
Well, a couple years ago, I guess it would be 7 years ago, I wanted to put my daughter through school, and I was trying to figure out what to do. And a friend, somebody that I had met, suggested maybe doing carpet cleaning. I didn't know anything about it at the time, and so we started looking into it and went down to look at college student rentals, and they had asked us to talk to them about it. They were trying to find somebody to do it, and we actually bid on the job, and we did a verbal bid while we were standing there. They accepted the bid, and that was on Monday, and we had to order equipment because we had no equipment, and the equipment came on Friday, and we started on Saturday. That was all within 1 week, 7 years ago.
So how did you develop the skills to do what's required to do that?
I had a friend who walked us through it, who showed us how to do and what to do, and the rest is history. We did student rentals for years, and about about 2 years ago, we started doing residential homes, and now it's very busy. It's allows us to go into people's homes and talk to people and meet people, and we really enjoy that.
Is it just you? Do you have a team?
So I have built up a team of people so that I don't really go out as much on the truck. Now the truck goes out without me, and they do. Sometimes, some days I jump on the truck, just for fun and go along. Nobody wants the boss to ride along with them all day. So, yeah, but I mean, it's a lot of trust. You're handing someone, a truck and expensive equipment, and you're sending them out. But we have a 5-star rating. Our ratings are perfect. And if there's something wrong, we go back out and we fix it. We very seldom ever have to do that, but we do 100% satisfaction guaranteed.
So even though you don't go out much, do you still manage what's
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah, so I'm still overseeing and watching appointments being booked and how that works. 99% of our appointments are booked online now. Nobody really calls much at all.
So the big question about this is, as a pastor, and we all know pastors aren't just full-time jobs, they are 24/7. How do you balance being a pastor, shepherding your church with the side hustle, with all the time and stress it takes to manage a business like this? How do you balance that?
Well, I think first of all, it's a lot of prayer. And then I think the second thing is you have to be really good at time management. Anybody who works closely with me knows that time management is very important to me. So, I block out hours that what I'm going to be doing, whether it's for the church or for the business. And then I allow time, because I'm so managed in time, that allows me in an emergency to be able to take care of someone's needs, or pray with them, or be with them, or during something that maybe it's serious that happened. And I think being in the management aspect of the business allows me to have freedom in my schedule too, and flexibility. But I believe time management is key to balancing everything. And everybody who works with me, I teach them that skill also, because it's vital.
So where do you see things for your church and ministry, as well as the business, in the next 3 to 5 years? What's your dream?
My dream? I think my dream would be to see the business grow. That's my retirement investment. So eventually, someday, I'll retire and sell the business. But I don't think you ever retire from pastoring. I think you just ride off into the sunset. But my dream would be, obviously, is to really focus all of my attention on ministry and reaching people for Christ. However, right now, even with the business, when we go through people's homes and we're cleaning, we pray through their house. We're praying for them. We're praying for their house. And we've allowed people, it's built relationships with people. So I believe that we're doing outreach, so to speak, cloaked as a business. But a lot of times when we go into homes, you're in people's personal space, and they'll share, something that they're going through. And we always look for an opportunity, whether it's something hanging on the wall, and we'll talk about their faith. But it's not pushy, it's just a conversation. And we've had some, really great conversations. And in fact, in the truck, one of the things that I always encourage them to carry is invites for church, or a tract, or even a Bible that they could actually hand to somebody should they accept Christ when we're talking to them, that we can actually hand the materials right there. So, we're not going out to push and be pushy about it, but God does always. We pray every morning before we leave. Before the truck leaves, we have to stop and pray. And the thing about that is that we pray for opportunity to be able to be a light, and to be salt and light to the world when we go out.
So it's very evangelistic, even
absolutely.
in building some business and income. It's evangelistic in the process.
And it allows us to be in hundreds and hundreds of homes in a year that we may not have been able to be in.
Sure. Well, I'm so glad to hear your approach to this, and I appreciate you stopping by the studio for a little while today. And I pray that the Lord continues to bless both your church, your ministry, as well as the business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have today. Thanks for watching Join the City True Stories. Let me encourage you to watch other episodes of people and organizations having an impact on our community on ABC 23 at 5:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. every Sunday. You can also catch us each week on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Until then, be encouraged, because God is moving in our city.